Hey guys, it's Alicia Taylor, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast.
Anyway, Chris, you want to jump in first?
Sure. So, as of yesterday, was the first time I'd ever heard of you and your group.
Oh, cool.
I'd
Awesome.
never seen it before or anything. So I spent the morning going through some things, and I'm sure you get asked all like similar questions all the time. But there's one thing I wanted to know personally, because I'm sure you get asked, how did you get into dance and how did this all happen? And I read the history of how you were a cheerleader for a while. And football does not strike me as a heavy metal genre, like sport at all. And I was wondering, like, how did you transition from like that into the metal scene? Do you know what I mean? Because I only recently got into heavy metal in 2011. I came from like a modern rock kind of background. And then
Yeah.
I had this one moment where I was just like, oh shit, this is heavy metal. I love this.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that
Okay.
moment for you?
Well, the moment for when I fell in love with heavy metal was way back when I was a kid. I mean, I grew up in the Seattle area, so I was surrounded by the grunge scene in the 90s. You know, I was born in 85. So, right in those formative years where you're kind of coming into your own and you're kind of discovering music, I think we all can relate when we start, your babysitter shows you this tape or something. And my babysitter showed me that tape called Green Jelly. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I was really, really young at the time. And I was like, wow, what is this kind of music? And, I think we generally get exposed to it through, parents or siblings or people that were around mostly, right? And especially back then in the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, we didn't have streaming. It wasn't like as easy to find music back then. You kind of had to be introduced to it if it wasn't on the radio already or on MTV, because back then they used to play music. So for me, it was just kind of always around. When it started getting heavier and heavier, I would say when I was around, like 12, 13, 14, around that age, started listening to like Fear Factory. I ran around with a group of boys. I was a tomboy. So we were listening to like Fear Factory. Korn was getting really big in the scene. Gosh, what else? And yes, actually Slipknot too. Back in those days, I remember one of my friends was like, you got to see this video. And he had this VHS tape and he put it in his TV. And he's like, it's this band and they're from Iowa and they wear these masks and they're crazy. And I was like, what is this?
Right in.
Do I?
You got sucked right in, right?
I got sucked right in. I was like, this is amazing. And yeah, even back then, like Limp Bizkit, had their $3 Bill Y'all album, and so there was this big wave, and I'm a massive Prodigy fan. Okay, so like the Prodigy was like everything to me in '98. That was like their big year, I think, and that's when I got introduced to them. So it just kind of was always a part of me growing up, and then I took that, into high school and into college and then into adulthood. So when I entered into the NFL, I was kind of the black sheep of the team. I had the most tattoos on the team. They were all small and I had to cover them up all the time. And I was still a metalhead, through and through. And, I've told this story a little bit before, but all the cheerleaders would have a day where they could be DJ for the day in the locker room when they all got ready for the game.
Right.
So it's like 8 a.m. and we're at the Georgia Dome and we're, all the girls would put on their makeup and usually they'd put on like pop or techno or hip hop and that's fine. But it was my day and I put on, I put on Slipknot and they never asked me. I never got to be DJ again after that. So
nice.
Yeah, but I think I would challenge that though, that idea that that metal doesn't really that I think it does go really well with football because every game I've been to, I mean, they've always playing Guns N' Roses. They're always playing AC/DC. They're always playing Metallica. And depending on what city you're in, because I think they play to their local culture there, environment. You know, I know some of the places like where was it? Is it Cincinnati? No, is it Cincinnati or Detroit? Somewhere up there. They were playing all rock and metal. And then in Oakland, you know, Carrie King went to the game. My girlfriend was a cheerleader over there for the Raiders. They were playing all Slayer that day.
Yeah.
Those cheerleaders didn't know what to do with that.
Oh, that is awesome. I stand corrected. I stand corrected.
But there's also, you know, a lot of hip hop and yes, a lot of pop as well. So
yeah, I just generally think of the NFL as like more mainstream. You know what I mean? Like,
so what does metal go with then?
Like we have always playing it safe within the lines. Hockey.
Okay, fair.
I could see that. I think
so too. Hockey.
I don't know. Anyways, it's not really important.
Anything
MMA.
Aggressive?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. MMA.
Yeah. Definitely.
Anyways, it was just a question for me because, like, for me, I only discovered metal in like 2011 when I went on a heavy metal cruise. And I was like in my 30s, and I was just like, holy fuck, my life was just changed instantly. So I was wondering like what that moment was like for you, but because you grew up with it, it probably wasn't such a groundbreaking moment for you. But I was just wondering, I was like, Jesus, for me, it was crazy.
So,
pardon my language.
Oh, that's fine. But I know you've done a lot of hard work doing. I read about all the motorcycle shows and all that stuff. But how in the hell do you get hooked up with Corey Taylor?
So our industry is very small, right? And especially rock and metal, it's even smaller. Right. And music industry, a lot of people would be surprised to know that a lot of people in our industry, the genres cross over too. So, you know, everyone knows someone through someone or via someone through our industry. And that's across pop, country, metal, rock. Generally, we're all separated by a very small degree. With that said, Corey and I met years and years and years ago, probably over 10 years ago now, when I was a cheerleader for the Atlanta Falcons. His guitar player in Stone Sour was a massive Atlanta Falcons fan. And he would come down the Georgia Dome, and my best friend worked at the front office there in their digital media team. Mm-hmm. And so because none of my friends would go to metal shows with me, he was my homie. We were concert buddies.
Nice.
And so so in a weird twist of fate, my best friend got linked up with Josh from Stone Sour, and they would kind of trade favors back and forth. You want to come to a Stone Sour show? Sure. Do you want to come tour the Georgia Dome? Sure. And I kind of just reaped the benefits of both because I was just there. So I would go to Stone Sour shows to see Josh. I didn't even Corey met in passing a lot of times, like, hi, oh, that's Corey Taylor. Nice to meet you. Okay, bye. And then we would kind of do that over through the course of, 5, 6, 7 years or so. Mm-hmm. And then I started touring. I left the NFL, created Cherry Bombs. We started touring. We started gaining some momentum. And one show I was at, a Slipknot show, again, with my concert buddy, Corey came up and said, oh, hi, nice to meet you again for like the fourth or fifth time. And he said, you run that dance group that's like touring with rock bands now. And I said, yeah. And he said, I've seen videos of you guys. You guys are really good. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And then it was like, bye. And then, a year or so passed after that. And Corey reached out to me directly and he said, hey, I'm putting this tour together with Steel Panther, and I want it to be really fun. And I want it to just be a party. And I want an act that is not a band. I want it to be something completely different. And I think the Cherry Bombs would be the perfect fit for this tour.
How fucking cool is that?
Yeah, so it's been a really long.
So how excited was the kid that was listening to Iowa to being to actually sharing the stage, or that moment? That must have been like quite amazing.
Oh, it was unreal. Yeah, of course. I mean, anybody who's a fan of this music would have been. I was so stoked. I was like, oh my gosh, This is amazing. What a cool opportunity. And and I was super excited, super stoked, very flattered. And so we started going to work right away. I started working on this tour that I was going to be on with Stone Sour. And then through that process and touring together, Corey and I got to know each other really well. When you tour together, you're with each other every day for a long period of time. And, you know, you really get to know each other. And he said, "Can I take you out on a date?" And I said, "No."
Oh,
yeah, I turned it down. And,
nice.
And I said, you know, I was like, it's really important to me that I stay professional. And, you know, we're on tour right now and I just don't want to, you know, promote that kind of work behavior right now. And he said, "Okay, fine." And then after the tour is over, he was like, "Now can I take you on a date?" And I said, "Yes." So
nice.
I didn't know that you guys were together. I was just like,
you're okay. I like this. This is fun.
I didn't know. I was like,
when he said he hadn't heard of you guys till yesterday, I sent him all the press release stuff.
Yeah. I'm like I say, I'm kind of new to metal, and I like going into interviews in a way that doesn't make me have preconceived notions of.
I love it.
I like to get the idea of the band from their promo stuff, and then get to know the people behind the band.
I love that. I think that's really cool of you. I think it's very genuine, and really, really rad of you. It reminds me, I did an interview last week with a guy, or a couple weeks ago, and he said, I did some research, and can I ask you this? Is your husband in the NFL? I was like, and I was like, no, but I love that. I'm going to tell him that.
My husband's in a way better rock band. So I've been watching, I watched a few episodes. I just got to get the name here right.
Girl Gang.
So I watched a few episodes of Girl Gang, and something that struck me right away, because I just clicked on the first video I see, and you're stuck in the middle of Texas, your bus is broken down, and then you end up at a slaughterhouse as a venue. And I was just thinking to myself, this seems like a plot for either a really good or a really bad horror movie. And then later on, I see you get all this horror merchandise. And as someone who worked in the horror film industry for quite a while, how much does horror play into what you do as like the genre into your stage perception and props and all of that kind of stuff?
It's funny that you say it that way and you bring it up, because this current show that we're touring with, and that we ended up filming as a movie over the pandemic, is a horror film, a horror story. It's called Macabaret, and I just took the word macabre and cabaret and put them together, and it's Macabaret. And it's about a man who breaks down in the middle of nowhere and finds himself stumbling upon a saloon, because that's the only thing in sight. He's in the middle of the desert, right? There's nothing in sight. Goes in, and the story is basically taking you through this saloon with this man, and we find out if he makes it out alive or not, or does he become an ever-living fixture, part of the saloon for all time. So it's kind of a Dusk Till Dawn meets Dante's Inferno mashup in the style of what Cherry Bombs is. So dance and circ arts, kind of Broadway-esque, if you will, like a Broadway horror story. And that's, I would say it plays very heavily these days, because I've never written a show before. Our shows have never been a storyline before, where it takes you from the beginning to the very end. They've always been kind of like a band plays, you know, like a song, and a song, and they're not related, and it's just the music.
It's like a set.
A set, exactly, very much. And this is a production. So we're telling you a story, and it is in fact a horror story. So yeah.
That's cool. I just saw that you had all those horror shirts, and I was just like, man, this is so cool.
Nice. Well, I'll have to send you the film if you're into it. And you want to watch it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
Now the other thing I was wondering, like in the videos, it makes it look like your whole troupe is involved in, like, not only just performing, but also like designing the props, making the props, setting up the stage. It seemed more like you didn't have a crew behind you. It was like you were doing everything as a group. Was I misperceiving that when I was watching that, or?
These days, we're able to bring in members and crew members, but we are still very hands-on. Prior to the past couple years, I would say we had no crew. We did all our own wardrobe, all our own setup, load in, load out, tear down, setting up, rigging, everything.
Wow.
Now, because, we're becoming more popular and we're having a little bit bigger budget, we can afford crew. So, on this last tour we just did, we had 3 techs. So we had stage right tech, stage left tech, and an LD. And they were, because our show is growing so much and it's so heavy in the way of production and transitions and aerial apparatuses coming off stage and on stage and all these things, we really do need the extra hands. And so now we're able to kind of have that. So we're very, very grateful for that, very lucky to have that and be able to afford that now. But there are some shows coming up where we won't have the budget for that and we'll have to go back to doing it ourselves. And that's fine. All the girls are great. They all jump right in. No one's scared to get their hands dirty. And we've kind of always ran it that way, selling our own merch. I used to drive the van when we'd tour in a van, and we'd sleep in it and that kind of thing. So we're kind of similar to a band in that regard, where we're kind of earning our own stripes.
That's so cool.
Yeah, thanks.
And then
feels good.
Here's a really odd question, because you use so many props and so many things that could hurt you very easily, either swinging from the roof or in some videos I'm watching you use like power tools and stuff with sparks. Yeah. So when you're doing that and you have such a small crew, first of all, you have to worry about the safety inspection part of it. How did you, and this might seem like the stupidest question in the world, but how did you learn about the safety inspection part of using all of these props?
I even thought of that.
It depends on the prop. So in regards to like OSHA, okay, circus arts are not bound by OSHA. So we're not under OSHA. So when people talk about the power tools and stuff, they're like, that's a big OSHA violation. Because we're considered a circus act. I mean, circus sideshow acts, hammer nails into their head. Okay. So we are just not applicable under OSHA. Okay. So get that out of the way. Second, we have a massive insurance policy. Third, the circus arts are kind of still underground. So there's no like real textbook way to learn this stuff, but there are, more experienced professionals that do teach. And they, will take people under their wing and teach them. So it's kind of a weird kind of passed down art where somebody has to feel like they can trust you in order to teach you this like, way of performing. It's very, kind of elusive in that regard and magical, if you will. It's kind of fun. But yeah, so with Cherry Bombs, I would say I head up the fire department of it. So I make sure every member of my team is fire safety trained first and foremost. I take them through a whole fire safety course. Then I test them, I give them a written exam, and then I give them a practical exam where they have to demonstrate proper fueling techniques, extinguishing techniques, lighting techniques with different props. I light things on fire and I throw them and I tell them, figure it out. These kinds of things that I drill into their heads, because it's a matter of not if, it's a matter of when something's going to go wrong. And is everybody prepared for that moment? I get that out of the way first and foremost. And then once they graduate that and they do that for a while, then they can move on to performing with fire. So that's how I operate. The aerial, my aerialists kind of take charge of that themselves. So they hold different types of trainings and certifications within that realm. So one of them is Sprat. Some of them are really well-versed in rigging. And rigging people is different than rigging speakers and lights and things that most people in like a rigger in a venue would probably be more privy to. So hanging humans is very different. So we do a lot of math. We take things into consideration, loads. We talk to a lot of engineers. We look at engineering plots. There's a lot of hoops that we jump through, that I myself jump through as the manager and director. And then I go ahead and have my area list sign off on it after I do as well, to make sure that we're all comfortable, since they're the ones hanging up there. So yeah, it's a lot of knowledge. It's a lot of education that we have to be up and up on, because we don't trust anyone that's not in our camp. We can't.
It's too dangerous. You can't trust anyone.
Yeah, we've seen stages put together with parts switched, and then a big guy pulls on something. It's like, well, it can hold me. You're fine.
That's the check.
Yeah, and then we know when that happens, we just go, nope, we're not going to fly today. Right. So I absolutely will not put my team in any more danger than they're already taking a calculated risk of.
Yeah, I always just
willing to do.
I just think about that when I see danger shows like that. Oftentimes people look and they say, look at all the training those people had to go through to do these stunts, but they don't think about the training that goes into the safety aspect of it, like making sure that nothing goes terribly wrong.
Yeah. And then what is your plan physical. When it does is the big one that people don't think of either. So yeah, and you kind of have to be a little out of your mind to do this stuff, I think. Or just incredibly hungry for attention. I don't know, but look at me, watch this, and yeah, but we definitely do take safety into consideration. Is it dangerous? Absolutely. But that's the point of it. And I think when I catch a lot of hell online, I get a lot of hell from, and I'm going to be very I'm going to stereotype here. It's a lot of men that give me a lot of hell for the power tool trick.
Really?
They're so mad. They get so mad at me.
Really?
Oh, you're going to disembowel yourself on stage. Well, that's going to be real fun when you go to the hospital. And
oh my God.
I'm like, well, but that's the point. Right? Isn't that why I'm doing it?
There's danger and excitement and the whole thing.
Like, what'd you think this was? Like smoke and mirrors? Like, what?
So I saw that you guys are playing Louder Than Life and Aftershock. What's it finally like to be out there and back to doing what you do best?
It's a blessing, man. I tell you, I will never take this job for granted. I will never not appreciate every moment that we have on stage, in the car, doing every little shitty part of this. There's not a lot of it, but all the little stuff that makes you grunt about it, never going to complain, because it could all be taken away again. And we learned that these past 2 years. So, coming back to it, super exciting, super rad. It's so cool to see everybody put up their tour announcements, and we're going out here and we're going out there, and all these lineups are coming out, and they're insane with the Aftershock and Louder Than Life too, like just insane lineups. And it's really, yeah, people are hungry. They are hungry, and everyone is on both sides of it, and you can tell. So it's really cool.
With that being said, then the energy must be insane, right? Because you guys have done a few shows already. The energy exchange must be insane, because they're dying to be there more so than I think than ever in the past, and so are you.
Yeah, 1,000%. Everybody's going ham out there. I mean, our first few shows when we toured during 2021, which what this current season of Girl Gang's about, we were kind of the first act to be heading out, and all the industry is kind of watching us to see, like, can they make this work? Can they do it safely, responsibly? And the audience, man, people were crying out there, just tears. And it was emotional. And then we started being like, and then everybody was crying. Yeah, I mean, you could tell everybody's soul got a little bit more dim during the past couple of years. So
I think if the last couple of years taught us anything, is that art is like one of the most important facets of society, and it's also probably one of the most underappreciated things in society.
Yeah, right. I mean, how lucky are we where we can just turn our computer on our phone and just listen to any song we want to, and at any given time. I feel like that kind of instant gratification, that on demand, has kind of made us spoiled and not appreciate the value of music, because it's just hear whatever we want. Back when, you had to get the CD, or you had to catch it on the radio, or you had to catch it on MTV. It was more of like a treat,
Yeah.
And now it's anytime, anywhere wear any way I want. And, you know, maybe we have kind of lost that appreciation. I think you're right.
I think there's going to be a sort of artistic renaissance here because everybody's been like locked away working on their craft and learning and, you know, putting the best stuff together. And I think now that it's opening up, we're going to see like an artistic renaissance, not just in music, but in dance and in shows.
Yeah.
People are dying. Yeah. They've been locked away.
Yeah, I've kind of seen it happen either heavily that way or heavily the other way, right? During the pandemic, It was like people either thrived and really dug deep and created some crazy, amazing things, or they kind of disappeared and didn't really do anything. So I think it's a true test of everybody's will and how they were able to adapt during this time. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It's exciting nonetheless to see all this come back for sure. That's
all I've got. Chris, you got anything else?
I have one more.
Yeah.
Is there a Vegas residency in the works? Well, this is something I'd love to see in Vegas.
Well, that's where I live. Yeah, I'm here in Vegas. So I was looking at a Vegas residency when I first moved here, and I was doing the math, and my business mind kept saying, this doesn't make sense financially. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. You have to sell out every single night all the time in order to make money. But the casinos, you know, they know that. It's kind of a weird relationship amongst the two. So I think what the best plan of action for us here in Vegas is to find a home that is not in a casino and is not tourist heavy, but is a good mix of the two, of local and tourist scene. And I'm looking down at Fremont Street, which I don't know if you've ever been down there.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
I had my marriage reception at Triple George's.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Very cool. Then you're familiar. So I'm looking kind of in that area, so that way it's a good mix. And I think if we do residencies, it'll be a little here and a little there, but not like full blown long term or anything like that.
Okay, cool.
Couple weeks in a row.
I was just thinking, like, you know, after I've never seen it live. I've only seen what I've seen on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I bet you this would sell like crazy in Vegas. You know, it's just like danger, and it's got everything that Vegas loves. But I don't know how the money works in Vegas. I honestly don't. All I know is that I lose a lot when I go there.
I had a meeting years and years ago with Randy Jackson. American Idol Randy Jackson, yeah. And he was like, I love that the Cherry Bombs are doing. I think you guys are onto something. I have a relationship. I would love to pitch you to Caesars. And I think you could do really well there. We could create this awesome thing. He brought me in his office and he goes, but you need to do it to something like this. And he hit play and he blasted Imagine Dragons so loud in his office. I'm sitting there in his chair and I'm looking at him. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do something to this. And he goes, but you have to, because you have to make it palatable for a wider audience. The music you're dancing to or performing to currently is too heavy. And I said, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
But that's the core of what you do.
I would have almost puked a little. Sorry. Nothing against Imagine Dragons, but like
no, but like that's not us, right? Like anybody who's like deep into this type of music. I mean, maybe there's a Venn diagram there, but like I imagine it's not a big overlap. No, right?
I think once this heavy stuff gets you, even as a kid, so much, it's in your DNA almost. I've had this conversation with other people. It's in your DNA and it's not going anywhere.
Right. There's something about the pushing drive of the drums or just that power behind it. And I've always kind of said this, that I think when rock became not so scary for parents is when we started getting into trouble. You know, when parents started being like, yeah, Mike, I'm not to say all, because, you know, we have parents like would take their kids to Kiss shows back in the day when Kiss was like super scary. Sure. And, Metallica and even Slayer and all this stuff and even Slipknot. But I mean, like, a lot of like when they're in like car commercials, and like a lot of parents were like very comfortable with their kids going to these things. Like when parents were very comfortable with this music is when we started losing that edge. Yeah.
We only got 8 minutes left in this thing, so we have to wrap it up quickly. But don't you think that that's what keeps it going, though, passing the torch to your kids so they can keep coming to the shows and keep supporting? It's kind of a double-edged sword there, right?
It is. But I think it's happening now more than ever because, you know, my generation and older, we were those kids. Right. We were those kids and we grew up with it. And so we're showing those kids. But I mean, I think right now, you know, the things that making parents really nervous is the hip hop stars.
Yes.
You know, your Cardi B's and your whatnot. And so they're really kind of at the forefront of the edgy, cutting edge stuff right now. Right. Because they're pushing boundaries and they're pushing people outside of their comfort zones. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. Right? Yeah. Like when you're pushing people past what they're comfortable with is kind of the goal of like rock and metal. You know, they never cared about being mainstream. Right.
Yeah. Ever. Right.
Never.
I kind of get that about Cherry Bombs though, is that you push people out of their comfort zone because it's like, it's like scary. It's women using power tools, which is for some reason scary for men. I don't know why. And you're flying in the air. I watched it. I was like, oh my God. And the first thing I thought, which I'm sure everyone says, because Bruce said it to me too, I was like, this is like a metal Cirque du Soleil. That's what I'm watching.
Is. Absolutely. Yeah. It is a metal Cirque du Soleil. And, you know, I think women and women's bodies make people really nervous still, especially in America.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you know, there are times where we show some skin and that can make people very uncomfortable.
Right.
What a weird time we live in.
It is, right? Yeah. It is.
You're born that way, man. I'm fucking naked.
Yeah, we all have nipples. Well, most of us do.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time.
For your time.
Be safe on tour. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Hope you see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.